guys! Today I want to talk a little bit about real estate. Okay, so as a licensed real estate broker, several of my friends would ask me questions about it. Okay, tsaka kasi I happen to own 2 residential condominiums in the Makati CBD, which are now currently being rented out to tenants. So tinatanong nila ako, Ben, ang real estate ba hanggang ngayon, is it still a good and wise investment instrument? Okay, so I want to answer that question without claiming any form of expertise. I just know things. I asked people, I interviewed some people, I went online, I read articles, I studied some of the figures, some of the statistics, reports, analysis, and my 8 years of experience in real estate. So, siguro meron akong a little bit of tidbit of information or insights na ma-share dito sa vlog na to. Alright, so I want to talk first about the global scale. Okay? Bago natin puntahan yung Pilipinas and real estate specifically. Okay? Kasi, well, we don't live in a vacuum. Although, sometimes it feels that way, especially now that you're in quarantine. Ayan, so, as you can see, as you're aware of, we have seen better days in the previous years. Okay, so, medyo magandang ekonomiya ng majority ng countries, no? And trade was doing well, investments were good, the stock markets were up. Okay, but because of this pandemic, what happened was economic experts worldwide, they predicted that most economies will suffer a decline. Okay, so if you are familiar with one of the gauges of economy, yung GDP or the gross domestic product, dati matataas yung mga predictions or forecast, that's the right term. So the forecasts given before by leading economists, mga central bank, financial analysts, they gave really good predictions entering 2020. But then, enter COVID and messed up all of this. So, what happened was, ang prediction for that prediction ay magkakat nga, bababaan, no? So from, kunwari, like in the Philippines, if I remember correctly, the prediction was we can go as high as over 6-7.5% GDP. So ngayon sinasabi worldwide, magkakat nga ng GDP prediction forecast, I mean, to 2.4-3%, which is half of what we are expecting. Okay, so that's not good news. Okay? And then there are several industries that were hardest hit. So can you guess kung ano yung mga yon? Okay? Bibigyan ko kayo ng clue. Ito yung pinaka-favorite kong gawin sa lahat ng bagay. It's travel. Okay? So one of the industries that was hardly or negatively affected, itong travel and tourism. So, syempre, walang flights, walang turista, people were quarantined or forced lockdown. So, patay, automatic ang industry. Okay, aside from that, ano pa yung mga nawala? Well, oil, transportation, retail. Pero kasi ngayon, ang daming nagbebenta online, no? So, I would say generally, retail, especially those that have not gone online as of yet. And, ano pa ba marami? There are still others, no? Ano ang hindi affected masyado? Healthcare. Insurance. So, yan yung mga medyo, I'd like to say, afloat. Kasi nga, naging parang, wow, people were like, oh my God, we need insurance and we need to invest in healthcare. Okay, so, yun yung nangyayari. Okay, so, the question now is, nasan dun yung real estate? Okay, so, is real estate hard hit? Or is it afloat and doing well? Okay, so, that is the question that we want to answer in this vlog. Okay, so, that being said, diba nga may mga industries that are hardest hit, hindi naman na-mention dun yung real estate per se. Okay, so, economists and analysts, hindi sila unanimous. Okay, so neither one of them said, okay si real estate, or neither did they say na hindi siya okay. Okay, so, there are, to be simplistic about it, there are two perspectives, okay? And just like every perspectives, merong isang nega, merong isang positive. Okay, so pag-usapan natin yung una, no? So, yung negative. Let's start first with the bad news. Okay, so one perspective is rather bleak. Okay, so what's that perspective saying? So there is an anticipated, if not yet happening for that matter, there's an anticipated potential halt in the property boom. Kasi if you remember, yung property industry or sector, nag-boom yan, no? Hindi lang recently. So in the last couple of years, it's been increasing. So it's very evident. You look to your left, to your right, up and down, may makikita kang condominium or office spaces that are being constructed. And if that doesn't tell you that the property sector was booming, then I don't know what else will. Okay, so ang sinasabi nga nitong perspective na to, si nega, magiging ano siya, rental or occupancy rates will fall. Okay, tapos vacancy rates tataas. And then people are not gonna buy properties anymore kasi nga parang useless. Okay? If you remember the GFC, the global financial crisis, anong taon yun? Start until mga middle to tail end of 2007 until roughly end of 2009. So 2008-9 GFC, it was really bad. Okay? And this perspective for 2020 is saying that it may actually turn out to be worse than the GFC. Okay? Tapos, based on some of reports and articles online, ang sinasabi nila, yung mga CBDs nga daw ng Metro Manila will be hardest hit. Okay? So, magkakaroon daw ng mga land values in Makati, in BGC, in Ortigas, and even the Bay Area, they're gonna decline by 5 to up to 15%. Okay, so lalo na yung condominium saka yung mga offices. So dun sa mga na-research ko, wala ang masyadong lumabas on land, house and lot. Okay, pero mostly talagang, especially lalo na pag CBD. So ang pinag-uusapan talaga ay yung condos and office spaces. Okay, so another perspective is saying, the same perspective is saying na yung offices nga mas mahihirapan din. It will be hard to lease kasi work from home nga, diba? So that's what's happening. And then the POGOs nagkaroon ng sort of a standstill. Okay, so may parang halt yung operations ng ating mga businesses. Okay? So all of this, while this is happening, nadagdagan pa ng, syempre nga naka-quarantine, di ba? So because of the quarantine, what else was halted? Okay, construction. Okay, so and we're not just talking about construction of public works and highways or DPWH related. So what I'm talking about is what I mentioned earlier na left and right you'll see condos rising. So nagkaroon din ng work stoppage dun sa construction ng condo. So there will be a definite setback in terms of anticipated project turnovers. Okay? So, most definitely wala makapag-turnover ngayong 2020. Okay? And those that are anticipating to turn over this year might need another year and a half. And most developers, their projects are already delayed as they are. So, mas madidelay pa yun. So, good luck sa sales team para dun sa mga mainit na ulong mga buyers who've been waiting 2-3 years delayed sa project niyo. So, yun, dahil doon, yung forecast din natin ng total available supply, bababa din yun. So, we should be seeing better days. So, what's the other perspective? Ito yung mas magandang pananaw. Okay, so ang sinasabi nito, it's a little bit more reassuring. Pero, ang caveat niyan, dapat by the first half of 2020, which is where we are right now, and we are entering the half of the first half of 2020. The premise there is, kapag ang Philippine government, or basta, it doesn't have to be the Philippine government, kapag nakakuha na ng vaccine, ng cure, and if we're able to contain the virus, economic managers and even the the credit rating agencies, they're actually projecting an economic recovery. Not this year. Okay? Medyo parang unrealistic to say this year. But sometime in 2021, hopefully by the first half also, there will be an economic recovery. And who or what are they predicting to lead the way in terms of this recovery? Primarily, the office sector. Okay? And we're thinking of both traditional and yung mga non-traditional, so BPO, POGO. Okay? And yung magiging increase na to or improvement in the office sector by 2021, definitely magkakaroon yan ng overspill or spillover. I think that's the better term. Spillover to a residential demand in key CBDs na meron yung mga office spaces na yun. Okay, so yun yung dalawang views, no? So isang medyo nega na bagsak talaga. Okay, real estate is going to the dogs. Okay, and last na kayo. Parang ganun. The other perspective is, yun nga, on the premise na magkakaroon ng cure or mako-contain sometime this middle of the year, we will see better days. We'll see better days and things will pick up. Alright, so before I move on to the discussion, I forgot to mention earlier in this vlog about the question also that I got from a friend. Sabi niya sa akin, Ben, totoo ba yung claim or real estate principle na the value of real properties do not depreciate, or meaning hindi bumababa yung presyo niya? Medyo tricky yung question na yan, ano? But the easy answer there is yeah, tama naman yun. Okay? So let me be historical with that. If you remember your history, or wag na history, your economics, who's the father of economics? So Adam Smith, sabi niya, land is the basis of all wealth. Medyo deep yun, no? Pero may basis yun. Saan nanggaling yun? Anong pinaghuhugutan ng statement na yun? I will just oversimplify it, no? Siyempre, merong pang mas philosophical, mas groundbreaking explanation. Pero, here's how I wanna look at it. Land, ownership of land gives you power. So, it's an ultimate currency. Di ba? Cavemen, kailangan makipagpatayan sila kung sinong titira sa cave, sinong titira sa bahay. Di ba? Sa Pilipinas, may ganyan din tayo. Alipin, di ba? Sa gigilids, namamahay. Having a home or having a property, having a hacienda, that's a status symbol. It's a show, a display of power. Okay? Yun na lang colonizing lands or countries or territories. That's the very basic logic behind that. Okay? Kasi they want to own that parcel of land. Okay? Kasi nga, it is a very strong currency, yung land. Okay? So doon ang gagaling yun, yung statement na land is the basis of all wealth. So kumbaga, nagkaroon ng mga feudal wars, mas madami kang lupain, mas powerful ka. Ganun yun. So doon ang galing yun, no? So kaya siya naging basis ng all wealth, yung land. And I will add to that, si ano naman ng quotable quote na to. If you know your literature, English literature, si Mark Twain, sabi niya, you should buy land because they don't make any more of it, or they don't make it anymore, something like that. That actually makes sense, no? When you look at our geography nga ba, natural resources, we have 70% of the entire earth being water. So yung 30% na yun, sa land yun, tsaka gas. Okay, no, seriously, there's only 30% of the world that is land, and we're not even sure that all 30% of those are habitable. Okay, so all the more reason to say that land being a finite resource, meaning you cannot create land, you cannot fabricate, construct, or make it. O sige, magdi-disclaimer ako kasi we're familiar with Dubai, with wag na tayong lumayo. Here in the Philippines, there is the Bay Area. So may tinatawag tayong reclamation. Okay, we're reclaiming a portion of the water to put land into it. So that's the exception. Okay, but in general, land is a finite resource. And going back to economics, that is the law of supply and demand. Diba? So, dahil finite yung resource na yan, mas tumataas yung value niya, or mas mataas yung kanyang value as compared to most other things. Okay. Ngayon, balikan natin yung effect nga ng pandemic. Diba? Earlier on, there was a perspective that was kind of bleak, and they were saying that it will hardly hit real estate, primarily the property boom. And we see that. Okay, we see that kasi nag-halt nga yung mga construction, and I've talked to several of my previous colleagues from real estate sales, and none of them are talking about, oh, I'm being the top seller again, I've sold this and that. Medyo problemado karamihan ng mga kausap ko in real estate sales, primarily because people are holding on to their money. Okay, and the same token that in the earlier part of this vlog, I said several people are asking me kung okay pa ba ang real estate. That is probably what's going on in their minds. Okay? But I'm gonna tell you this. Despite residential sales slowing down because of the pandemic, reports show that residential leasing has been reportedly doing quite well, especially for condos that are, or not necessarily condo, basta residential properties that are located in the proximity of the CBDs. Okay? Na may mga IT, POGO, BPO. Okay? Why do you think that is? Okay? So, the reason for that is because yung mga condos na to ay naging converted into rentals. So, with the short lease or short term or long term, naging maganda yung report ng leasing ng mga properties na ito. And if I may digress a little bit, even yung certain tiers of hospitality, I mean, even if we've heard na Marco Polo shut down or closed down and nag-retrench si Soler, merong mga certain tiers of hospitality or of hotels that were actually fully booked. Okay, so ito yung mga, well, there's Red Planet, Go Hotel, yung Korean, Jinjiang Inn, even Crown Hotel here in Ortigas. Okay? They were fully booked primarily because ginagamit nga ito ng mga IT, POGO, and BPO locators. Okay? So, this kind of confirms na even despite bad times, real estate can actually stay afloat. Okay? So, sales may not be doing well, but those that are already or have already been turned over, have been in use or empty, are now actually being put to use and are actually earning money despite the pandemic.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Hey guys, so I was in the middle of editing the video file for this vlog and I realized medyo mahaba na. Okay, so baka matulog na kayo eh. So I've decided to just split it into a two-part vlog, and so that being said, this is the end of part 1 on my thoughts about real estate, especially during the time of COVID. Okay, so I will see you on part 2. If you like this video, please click like and then share it. And if you haven't yet, please click subscribe and make sure to click that bell.